Hello and welcome to Cheshire Audio. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I did mention this in the previous video actually, but I had a customer who rang me and he wanted a new cartridge for a Planer 3 that he'd had for years. He wanted to update it a bit. And so we talked through all the options. I mean, you would have thought that I would just have to say, oh yeah, what you want is. But I do have a range of cartridges that sort of suit the P3. Some will fit the 2, some will fit the 6. But if we're talking about the 3, there's about 5 that I generally fit to P3s. Obviously I've got my favourites personally, but because it's a subjective thing, I've also got models that I do that I know other people will like if they have a certain, criteria or whatever, or a particular system or something like that. So you have to have a bit of a broadish spread of choices. So anyway, I went through, talked to the guy and talked about what the sort of sound he's looking for and all this sort of thing, and the system he's got and what he'd had before. That's quite important sometimes. Came to a conclusion about a model, and then he said, well, I want to fit this myself. So of all these models, which is the easiest to fit for a novice? And I thought, okay, that's tipped it on its head a little bit, because the one that I'm recommending as probably the best for the system is probably the most difficult to fit. So let's readdress this. So we talked it through again and we came up with a sort of compromise which was sort of towards what he liked, but it was easier to fit. And I thought this is a good subject for a video actually. So what I'm going to do, I've got the 5, they're over there. I've got the 5 cartridges that I generally fit to P3s, and I'm going to go down in the workshop and I'm just going to go through each one. And we're going to have a look at, I mean, you would have thought they'd all be the same because it's a 2-bolt fitting, standard nowadays, and 4 wires to attach. Surely they're just all the same. They're really not, actually. There's certain quirks and characteristics of things that come into play that either make them very easy or not so easy to fit. So the cartridges we're going to be looking at are just on the table here. Just turn the camera. We've got the new Ortofon 2MR red. Obviously the fitting is the same for the red, the blue, the bronze, the black. We've got the Audio-Technica VM95 in the back corner there. That's an ML, but obviously again would be the same fitting with a C, the E, the EN, the ML and the SH. We've got the Nagaoka MP110 again, the 100, the 110, the 150, the 200, the 300, the 500. Rega Exact. With those two, it's probably the Exact and the Elise, the same fitting. And then the sort of newcomer, we've got the Goldring E3. I'm saying newcomer, it's been out for about 18 months. E3, so we've got similarly with the 1, the 2, the 3 and the 4. I generally just do the 3 and the 4, to be honest. The 3 is lovely, the 4 is actually a really nice cartridge as well. So which of these is the easiest to fit? We shall find out. Okay, so I'm going to use this Planer 2 just to confuse everybody, because we're talking about Planer 3, but it's kind of the same fitting really. The head shell's exactly the same. It also belongs to me, so I'm not too worried about putting loads of cartridges in it. And it's white, so things are going to show up better as well, I think, hopefully. That's the theory of it anyway. Okay, let's start with the Rega cartridges. I've got this Exact, so what we're talking about kind of covers the Exact and the Elise because they're both 3-point mount. Now, 3-point mount is quite unusual, really. You don't get that very often, partly because it kind of ties you to a type of tone arm. So this is compatible with the Rega head shell. I mean, Lin experimented with it. I can't remember whether they still do 3-point mount Lin now, but the original Troika of like 30 odd years ago was a 3-point mount. Had this, I think this 3rd bolt was at the back, and it obviously just fitted in the, I think the Estoc and the Ecos arms fitted the 3-point mount. I mean, it doesn't mean you can't use this in another tone arm. You just ignore the front bolt, so you don't get the advantage of that sort of rigidity from that, I suppose. But yeah, generally these go into Regas anyway, so it's not so much of an issue. One thing I'd say about Rega is they come with the very best. I mean, seriously, the very best mounting kit. So you get a specific Allen key, which is I use this for everything. These little Allen keys, because it's quite deep from there to there. Which means you're clearing the cartridge when you're tightening things up. You're not going to flick a stylus off with the Allen key. Proper Allen head bolts, that's the 2 main bolts with nuts, and then you get a short bolt for the front, which is, the cartridge is threaded, so you don't need a bolt for that. And then you also get this little mysterious little washer. Now that comes in if you've got an early tone arm, because the the later ones, the front hole is exactly the right size for the bolt. It's exactly the right diameter. It's a bit tight, if anything. The earlier decks had a much bigger hole at the front, and the little washer was there to pack that out, so it lined up properly. So if you're wondering what the little washer is, just if you've got a later tone arm, you don't need it really. I have had people try and use it and crush. I've had decks coming in and there's a little washer crushed down at the front there, which yeah, okay. Wiring wise, now one slight drawback with, not drawback so much, but fiddliness with the Regas is I'll just get the camera to come back on. No actual colour coding on the back of the cartridge there. Now, luckily, there is quite a good diagram in the instructions, but if you don't have the instructions, if you've bought it second hand or whatever, if you look very closely, there is R and L, plus and minus, so that kind of, if you can see it on here, I don't know if is that going to focus? Probably not. Yeah, almost. So top right is red, top left is white, bottom right is blue, bottom left is green, so as in your wires on there. Now normally you have a little colour indicator on there. Rega don't do that, and also Rega are kind of reverse to everybody else. I think I mentioned before the chap I think he'd gone from, I can't remember what, from Watt to Audio-Technica or Rega, and they're the opposite way around. So if you just carry the wires across, like in that case, it was completely back to front. The stereo was left and right was reversed. Okay, just not on the microphone. That's not ideal. All right, fitting wise with these, what I tend to do first is put in front bolt. All cartridges are different, actually. I mean, I would always like to try and have them set sort of semi-mounted before I wire them in, really. So okay. Filming and doing these things it's like on another level, isn't it? I can't do it. Yeah, it's quite. These front bolts are quite tight on the newer arms. You have to sort of almost pick up a thread, really, and sort of get them to start off. That's nice and free. So what I tend to do is mount on the front bolt. Is it on there? Yeah, almost. Not too tight. Just so it's not on there reasonably. And then, where's my things? Oh, there you go. And then you can actually start wiring in. I'm at completely the wrong angle for that. Let's just move it around a bit. So you get really good pair of, camera's gone off again. There you go. Really good pair of fine nose pliers. I tend to start with red. What you want to do is get hold of the tag just behind where it sort of broadens out, so it's got something, a bit of purchase on there, and put onto, I should move it to the right position, to there, again with the white, onto there, push it on, do blue next because it's always the awkward one to get at. So we're on. So that's wired in. And then what you want to do is push it into position so that it's sort of semi-aligned. Now when I was saying it isn't just a case of it snaps into position with this. There's a bit of tolerance, which I'll show you in a sec when I get the bolts in. Always put the nuts at the top, because the little extra routed out slot there is basically to hold the nut when you tighten it down. Okay, so after cutting for the phone as usual, right. So we've got it fitted now, but just very loosely. Now, before you do too much, it's always a good idea, because just check that this is really heavy at this end. So because this hasn't been calibrated, it's worth just very loosely. You don't have to be particularly accurate about this. You just have to get the actual tracking weight kind of roughly where it should be. Only because when we're putting the stylus onto the protractor, you don't really want it with loads of weight on or too little weight and skating around all over the place. So It's just took a couple of grams on it, really. Yeah, it's about right. So what I was saying about the 3-point mount not being absolutely spot on, what I'll show you now, if you can see this, it's all on loose at the moment. So there is actually quite a bit. Can I do this with one hand? Yeah, it's quite a bit. See, there's quite a bit of movement in the back of the cartridge. And what you find is that the actual alignment point, when you put this on a protractor, it will be right. But the cartridge may or may not be straight in the head shell because there is that probably 2-3 mil of movement there. So the way I find I can't actually see this and film it at the same time. I can't see through the thing at the back, but you'll notice that you can see through the gaps here. So in the actual slots for the cartridge, you can see the cartridge body, and the way to get it right is to move it around until these two gaps are symmetrical. And I find it quite easy that way. You can just move it around, and also you'll notice, if I can get on the other side, you can just about see daylight coming back in these back two corners, and that's probably a more precise way to see it. If you've got enough light, you can just about make it out. So once you're happy that the cartridge is straight, you can then, I've lost my Allen key, then tighten it up. Now, obviously, I've missed out a point here because we haven't checked it on the protractor. But 3-point mount, you shouldn't need to. But I must admit, I always double check afterwards because sometimes the tolerance in the back of the tone arm, the earlier tone arms, there was a bit of sort of leeway in the. Lost the thread for a sec. A bit of leeway in the mounting, and you could have a couple of mil either way. So we're not always spot on. The newer arms, the 3-point mount at the back is much more accurate. It won't let go of the Allen key. Got you. Right. So tighten down, not massively tight, just so you feel it sort of nip, and then a little bit more just to tighten it. Just nip that up a little bit. So that's kind of fitted now, but we'll just double check it. Now normally you would do this part with the cartridge still a little bit slack so you can move it around. You shouldn't need to do it with an Exact because it should be right. I'll put that on put it on the right hole. That's probably better. So we've got about 2 grams on there. Stick it on the cross. I always tend to use the Rega protractor. I mean, I know there are alternatives. Don't forget that protractors are a compromise. There isn't a correct protractor. There's alignment protractors with biases towards one type of alignment and biases towards another type of alignment. But all you're doing is altering. How do I describe this? The correct alignment will be a straight line. A tone arm can't do a straight line. It can only pass across the correct straight line twice on its arc, and different protractors sort of move around where these two cross points are. So they might be close together, they might be further apart, depending on how far back or forward the cartridge is. If they're further apart, you'll get better tracking at beginning of end, but you'll be way out in the middle. If they're closer together, you get a better average. And the Rega one tends to go with the better average rather than being necessarily spot on at the end, spot on at the beginning, because there's less deviation from correct, I suppose. But if anybody tells you on the internet that such and such protractor is correct, it's not true. There isn't such a thing as a correct protractor. You can't have correct alignment. It's all a best compromise every time. So anyway, let's have a look at from above. Let's see if I can't see it at all. Wait, just get the camera to light, come up again. But if you look there, you can see the edge of the head shell there is in line with the lines. Now this is where your problem with aligning the cartridge, because this means you know that the tip of the stylus is in the correct place, but you need to ensure that the cartridge is straight, because all you're showing there is that the head shell is, the tip is in the right place, and that shows because the head shell is straight. But if the cartridge isn't straight in the head shell, it's not right. So you have to, this thing with the little gaps there just ensures it's straight as well. So the cartridge is straight with the head shell, and we know the head shell's straight. So that's done. So there you go. So let's move on to the next Next cartridge. Okay, so Nagaoka MP110. Now this is probably one of my favourite cartridges actually in a Rega. I think it really suits it. Not everybody's into them, but it's just one of those things that just it's nice and warm and sort of natural sounding, and it's it makes the best of a bad recording as well. It's quite good in that respect. As far as fitting goes, most hated part of this totally. I mean, this is the one. This is probably bottom of the list as far as fitting goes, not including the Goldring 1000 series. But anyway, another story. Yeah, it's actually got open holes for the bolts, so actually getting the thing to stay in while you're fitting it is a nightmare. That side of it really puts me off fitting them. Other than that, nice square body. So when it's actually in the head shell, lots of alignment points. Visually you can actually align it with the protractor very nicely. On the back we've got colour-coded pins on the back, so good again actually. So nice and easy to wire in. Yeah, easy to sort of straighten up, but actually holding it there. And what I'll do is I'll just start to fit it now and just show you why that's about. Apart from the fact it's difficult to get it to stay where you want it to stay, there's a lot of side-to-side movement that way as well. So you have to. So instead of just having to take account of backwards, forwards, making sure it's straight that way, you also have got this movement as well, which with pretty much any other cartridge you don't get. So it's. Yeah, it's not. I don't really think it's a cartridge for the beginner, this one really, unless you're very brave. Anyway, let's just move this around again so I can actually see what I'm doing. Not as difficult with this because, like I say, it's all colour coded. So let's pull the wires out a little bit so I can see better. I'm leaving the guard on because I know what's coming really. Oh, put my glasses on. Put your glasses on. What are they? Why is the world blurred? Let's see. Oh, that's better. So colour coding, usual thing. Get behind there. Oops, what do? You'll notice this is completely the reverse of the Rega. Left to right it is anyway. It'd been easier to put the green on before actually, but anyway. So we're wired in. Let that go. Now, what I tend to do with these, well, before I talk about this, actually, toolkit. That's the toolkit that you get, which looks very comprehensive. Little screwdriver, little washers, little 2 sizes of bolts, little nuts in there. I hate that. I don't use it. I really don't like it. I find that it's those little nuts there. They're not a nut as such. It's the little sort of ring with the 2 slots in. It's difficult enough without trying to use those, so I tend to sort of chicken out and use Rega bolts. So I'm using Rega bolts. I don't care. Yeah, what I tend to do is I put first bolt through before we even try and mount the cartridge. Just try not to drop everything. Right, first just so the thread's just on. That means you can actually push it into position. Now, quite often when you do this, it just falls out again. So you almost need to keep hold of it while you get the second bolt in. As luck would have it, it's actually holding today. They don't usually do that. So then we get in the second bolt. Oh, just by sort of finger tight so far. Come on. Not an awful lot of thread showing. It's a very deep cartridge actually. The actual top of the body is quite deep, so you do need quite long bolts for these. Might have to go off camera and do this, won't we? Come on. I do talk to turntables. Luckily they don't answer. Oh, there you go. Right, so what I tend to do now is a bit too slack to sort of do any proper alignment of, so what I tend to do is just give it a bit of a nip, just so you can feel a bit of resistance. Like as soon as you feel resistance, stop on both. That's it. So that means you can still move the cartridge around. What you'll find is, like I say, if you can also move side to side. There's not a lot of movement, but there's enough for it to throw the symmetry of the cartridge off. So you have to try and find the central point. and you can move backwards and forwards. So once the bolts are in, it's not going to go anywhere. But like I say, what I do like is if you look down, that's kind of, I'd say that's probably right there actually. Just from doing loads of these, that's kind of the alignment point. That front edge, nice and in sort of parallel with the front of the head shell, and you can just see that black bit of surround there just poking ahead. Normally that's about right. Don't assume because I've done it like that yours will be the same, because there is a bit of tolerance towards the back of the tone arm. They're not necessarily. The later arms are better for that because they screw in. But if it's the bottom bolt type, there's a couple, can be a couple of mil tolerance actually. So the alignment point here can be different. But anyway. So basically that will be it. You then get your protractor and just double check it, and then you do your weights, do the protractor, then check the weight. All done. Yeah, I don't think it's a cartridge for the beginner, to be honest. I think there's too many chances of dropping it or really not getting it straight, or the amount of time. Even me actually, sometimes I'll tighten them down, think, oh, the protractor, everything's right, and then realise it's offset to the left a little bit, or there's something. So yeah, I think really between the Exact and the Nagaoka, the Exact is a much easier cartridge to fit, really. In spite of the fact it hasn't got any reference points on it, and this is visually easier to do. It's just the actual mechanics of it are not as easy. Right, let's move on to the next one. Right, next up we've got the Audio-Technica VM95, which big range of these. So we've got, I think I mentioned before, we've got the C, the E, the EN. This is the ML. And the SH. Personal favourites, EN and tongue twister, EN and the ML, really. I never quite got into the SH, although some people love it. But yeah, nice shaped body. No real reference points on this particularly. I mean, it's almost flat at the front, but not quite. What's really good about the Audio-Technicas is it's got a captive nut in there, so none of this sort of fiddly fitting at all, and I'll show you how easy these are in a sec. Like the Rega, there's no actual sort of colour coding on the back of there. It's got the plus, the minus, the R, the L. This is reversed from Rega, completely opposite way around. It is actually shown in the instructions. So if you compare it to the Rega instructions, which is that, this is the Audio-Technica instructions, which is, well, all that. And somewhere up on this little bit here is a little diagram to show how, oops. Yeah, loads of packaging, which is actually off camera is everywhere. But anyway, so yeah, so fitting wise, bit of a dream, to be honest. These, I love these, and also the fitting kit's nice. I'm not actually going to use, oh, am I? Should I use a fitting kit? I don't really want to unfasten the fitting kit particularly. Yeah, it's which one is it? That one. I'm getting confused now because I've not put anything away. That was a bad idea. Yeah, fitting kit. Sorry, I'm up to speed now. Comes with a nice screwdriver. Just trying to make the camera wake up. Wake up. Thank you. Little Audio-Technica branded screwdriver. And some little screws there. So let's just. And I will use their screws because, as you'll see, everything works out very nicely, thank you. So, got those bits in there. They did come with washers. I never tend to use the washers, actually. But so, actually, let's put the guard back on, just to be on the safe side. I tend to do the usual thing of fit one bolt, get it so it's a little bit closer to correct. So a bit of movement on it. So now you can do your tags and everything. So from memory, red. Of course they got into a knot. Why wouldn't they get into a knot? White. Green and blue. So that's on. Now you get the second bolt. These are actually quite nice quality bolts. These are sort of I think they're some sort of like aluminium type alloy, or whatever they are, but absolute dream to do, because using the same idea as the Regas, you check the gap down here. The cartridge itself, there's no alignment points on, but the mounting point for the actual mounting point for the actual bolts there is visible through the gap, and you can do this sort of the symmetry thing again like you can with the Rega, but it's probably easier with the Audio-Technica. So what you can do is sort of hold it like this, and then tighten down just enough so you've still got a bit of movement in it. Then you can do your alignment, and just when you're doing your alignment, you check it. If it's slightly wrong, you can just all you're doing is just slightly slackening, moving back, checking that everything's symmetrical, tighten it up again, check again. You know, like I said, set your weight first to somewhere near, do all your alignments, keep moving around. They're an absolute dream to do these. I love doing these because it's so quick to do, and easy to tell if it's straight. And then once you're satisfied with it, nice bit of a nip up and everything's done, just double check your weight, and you're ready to go. So I would say this is probably the favourite. I think the Audio-Technica, for some reason, are just really easy in that respect. Work really well. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. Okay, right now we're on to the Ortofon 2MR, which is this is the new sort of shallower bodied 2M basically. So it's more in keeping with the Rega, I suppose. I never really found a problem with the full size ones on the lower models. It never seems to cause any issue, but sort of visually this is better. It sort of lines up better. This is quite interesting actually, because this has got all the best features. It's got threaded body. We've got colour coding. Nice square sides, so it's quite easy to align. And the front edge of it actually does kind of match the front edge of the head shell as well. So it's actually very nice to align. So you can sort of put it into position and tighten down. Colour coding is, I'm trying to have a look whether that's which way around we're at. It's actually through 90 degrees. So actually most cartridges are wiring that way. This is actually turned through 90 degrees. So like I say, they're never the same. So never assume that they're going to be the same. Oh, put my tools down. There we go. So usual sort of thing with this, I would put. Oh well, before I getting ahead of myself. Toolkit. Get like a little stylus brush, a little screwdriver, 2 sets of screws. I've actually taken 1 set out already because I'm getting ahead of myself. So putting a little cover back on. Cover on these is a bit weird actually. It's not that easy to get it. You have to put it on and give it a push and it clicks. A lot of people caught out about that. They're sort of thinking it's on and then it falls off again. It's interesting. Funny, the 2M series I never quite totally got on with. This is only personal preference. I mean, it's generally the whole range has got a really good following. I like the black and bronze, but generally reds, blues, not so sure personally. But it's not a massive thing, but it's just very clean and clear, but possibly just sometimes a little bit bland, I suppose. But on other decks, yes, I think that the red and the blue sound great on a Nottingham. And I've heard them on other tone arms sounding really good, but for some reason never quite gelled with the Regas really. But then saying that, like I say, I've got customers out there using 2Ms and they absolutely love them. So it does come down to a bit more of a personal choice sometimes with these things. Right, so if we start off with green, which is up top corner, then we've got blue, which is behind there. Managed to lose the red wire. Where are we? Come back to me. Red wire. Just down the bottom. Right, so we're wide in. So put it sort of roughly to where we think it might be. So again, it's a bit like the Audio-Technica. It's really nice to position. So you can just that's probably a bit too tight actually. You can get it in sort of a fastened down, but not too much, so you can actually still move it around. So just feel a bit of resistance. So now we've still got a bit of movement. I reckon actually it might even just line up with the hedge. I'm actually going to try this one because I can't remember. Always make sure your wires are tucked up. Amount of people have rung me and said stylus is skipping across the record, and actually when you say, well, send me a picture, and one of the wires will be sort of sticking down like that and hitting the record first. Not something that's easy to spot particularly. Right, so, yeah, like I said, I'm just going to properly do this because I'm probably out of, I can't remember. I don't fit many of these to Regas now. We'll just check the weight somewhere close. Yeah. Put about 2 grams on it just to try it. I think. No, it isn't at all. It doesn't. It's a shame because I thought that was the case. If you line it up with the head shell, it doesn't. I'll show you that. Line the cartridge with the head shell. It's nowhere near just lining up with the lines. Surprised actually. It must be a good while since I've done this. So in that situation, we need to move back. Probably, I would say about there. Funnily enough, it's not quite as easy. Even though you've got the side view of the sides on it, you can't. It sort of tapers away, and you can't really see the from above. You can't really see the shape of the body very easily. So actually getting it straight in the head shell isn't totally as easy as it could be. Yeah, we're right at that. So that's quite a way back. So actually getting it in the right position is with the cartridge quite a long way back in the head shell actually. Anyway, might be different on, you know, if you're using a different type protractor, or if your tone arms, like I say, a bit of tolerance at the other end sometimes. So yeah, then what you would do then is just, like I said, as before, now we know it's in the right position, just nip up the bolts, then double check your weight, and you're good to go. Oh no, I'm putting that away, I don't know. Right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, we're on to the Goldring. Now, I've not actually unboxed this, partly to show what a nice bit of packaging this is. I'm not really going into it now. But yeah, nice little box. Little cover on there. Instructions. Oops. It's all coming apart. Inside we've got a little toolkit. I'll just put it back. It's all falling out. Yeah, cartridge with a little pull strap on it. Can you see? Can you even see that? Yeah, little pull strap on there. Nice Allen key, and all the bolts are down the back of there. Let's pull that out. Let's have a look. Now this is a pretty big cartridge, to be fair. Even bigger than the Ortofon. I shall leave that in. No, I'm taking it out. Let's go for it. So getting the tools out of the packaging is actually need the Allen key to pull the screws out. So yeah, so nice little Allen key, and it actually comes with a couple of proper Allen bolts, a bit like the Rega ones actually. So that's nice. None of these sort of awkward to use sort of things that a lot of other cartridges supply. I'm going to take those out because I'm going to use those. Sorry if you can't see what's going on. It's all going off. It's all happening off camera. Right, so we've got the two bolts that come with it. Now this is like the Ortofon actually. It's colour coded. That's similar to Audio-Technica, I think, that way around. It's back to front. Oh no, similar. That's same as Rega. Actually, we've got captive nuts. A really complicated stylus guard on these, which is, you sort of look at it and you can't work out which way up it's supposed to go. It's a really odd, it's a marvel of engineering, but you sort of get it in your hand, you can't work out which way it's supposed to go. I'm already confused. I think like that, I would say. Yeah, now taking it off, I don't know how it goes back on again. I'll work on that. Okay, so same scenario. We have got sort of flat edges here, but it's not really that many sort of reference points for sort of alignment on this particularly. So we'll use the, should do it by finger type. Somewhere near, I think. Take the last bit in. Yeah, like that. So glasses on. So I'll start with red. Tend to start with the furthest tag away if you can. I don't think I've been necessarily doing that while I've been sort of showing this, but that is always the easiest way. Do the ones furthest away and then move towards yourself, because if you don't, you end up with a tag that you can't get to easily because it's obscured by all the others. Oops. Yeah, always, like I said, I always try and get it just behind the. What tends to happen if you hold it any further back, if it's a bit of a tight pin to get onto, you can actually fold the tag at that point if you're not careful, and they're very easy to snap these, and that's a resolder job, and they are horrible to resolder on. I mean, I have got stock of them, but it's not a nice job because this wire doesn't take heat very well. Tone arms generally, they don't like. The cables are very, very fine up the tone arm because it needs to be to give so it doesn't restrict movement. Right. Now what we have got on this is a flat front edge, so you have got a certain. I'm saying it hasn't got great alignment points. Thinking about it, actually looking at it now, it has. It's not too bad at all. So let's get it somewhere close. You can see it's a massive cartridge, but actually height-wise they're fine. They seem to work fine without any spaces or anything. I think the whole spacer thing with Regas is I've managed to get my Allen keys stuck in it now. There's a lot of assumptions made about the heights of cartridges and what's required. I've over-tightened it, and I've heard people sort of saying, "Oh well, you need 3mm because it's 3mm deeper than the Rega cartridge," and you can't. It doesn't work like that really. And also, I've said this before: when Rega tone arms were originally designed, the current range of cartridges weren't available, and it was the cartridge, the R100 that they made at the time, was a much deeper body. So really, let's check what the weight's like. That's a bit. It's quite heavy. This. Where are we? I just realised you can't actually do this from above, can you? Near enough. All we're doing is putting just about the right weight on there, so we don't stress the cantilever anyway. Oops. You know what? Bob on. Crikey, that is bob on. Yeah. As far as straightening it goes, so we've got it. Trying to bring the screen back up. Yeah. So it won't show on the camera actually, because you have to sort of move your head around until you can get a straight, sort of everything straightened up. But we're straight with the lines, and you can see the flat front edge of the cartridge, the flat front edge of the head shell, and as long as the two lines are parallel, then everything's straight. So that's quite nice to set up actually. That one. Not quite straight actually there, but we'll not go down. Don't let the OCD kick in. So yeah, that's it. And then usual sort of thing. Once you're happy it's position, nip it up, check your weight again, and good to go. So that's that. What I'm going to show you actually, and I didn't include this in the actual list of cartridges because I didn't think I'd got one, but I've actually just found. Yeah, what I found is I didn't think I had one, but I've actually got a Goldring 1000 series with a very unhappy cantilever. Quite how people do these things to cartridges, I don't know. It's actually banana shaped. But anyway, so it's 1012GX. I would say this is the most difficult cartridge to fit of all. Of everything I've ever tried to fit on anything. And the reason for it is, I mean, there's kind of an easy way around it, but I don't like the easy way around it. The point is, if you look at it's got open hole, but the body itself actually comes out beyond the holes. So The idea, I think, is that you would put the bolts in from the top of the head shell and then put the nut on the bottom. That is massively fiddly to do, and I don't actually like having the bare metal hanging down like that. I don't think it's a great idea, because if you sort of miscue when you're putting your record on something like that, you've got rough edges of a whatever going on there. So the best way to do it is to put the bolt in from underneath, which is the conventional way of doing it, really. But you get into this situation where, how's that going in there? It can't get round the angle, so you almost have to force them in like that. And you think, oh great, it's gone in now. Now you try and get your Allen key on it, and you're trying to tighten at an angle, and you're worried about damaging the body of the cartridge and all this sort of thing. So pretty horrible to fit, to be honest. I mean, there probably are other options bolt-wise and things like that, but I can't get it out now. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't like fitting those, if I'm honest. It's a great cartridge. I mean, the 1000 series is still, it's an really old design, but it still stands up. It's still a really worthwhile cartridge, and it suits the Rega well as well, actually. And you've got upgradable style, you can swap between all the different versions on the same body. If it was going to go back in again, yeah, there you go. So anyway, there we go. Yeah, so I hope that's helpful. I mean, I've gone through the main ones that I tend to fit regularly. Just a note on this, because people will ask me if I don't mention it. None of the cartridges I've fitted need a spacer. Like I say, the internet goes a bit mad about that, really, and gets really obsessive about it, and it's not necessary in any of those. So yeah, that's it. So if you've got any questions, email me. Yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you in a future video. Don't forget to give a subscribe and a like. I'm going to go and make a cup of tea and warm my hands, because it's actually -5 this morning here. It's quite chilly, really. What's -5 in Fahrenheit? It's about 20 something, 28 something. I don't know, can't remember. Fahrenheit, I can't, my brain doesn't work. Yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you in a future video.